But it took me this long, I'm 30 now, to realize that's what I was doing. Because the way that our parents raise us is a lot of times the same way that we continue to raise ourselves. Meaning, we carry on the same thought patterns that we had when we were a kid, we carry on the same beliefs, we hear the same things that our parents told us in our childhood. We do the same things, we eat the same things that our parents made for us. And we do this subconsciously, without even thinking, because we've just done it for so long. Hello, beautiful beings of light. My name is Monica. Today's video is titled, Are You Neglecting/Abandoning Your Inner Child? And How to Reparent Yourself. Alright, this video is going to be personal. It is going to be vulnerable for me. We're going to dive deep into my own personal issues. And the reason why I'm doing this for you guys is to help you better understand me, my thought process, and how I came to this conclusion so that hopefully it will help you in your journey as well. So, neglect and abandonment. Two of the main occurring themes throughout my lifetime. Two of the biggest things I have been trying to overcome, but it's a long process. It hasn't been overnight. I still don't think I'm fully there and fully healed. I may not ever be, but I think I'm making a lot of progress in the right direction. So recently, I have been thinking a lot about my childhood and about my mom, just really reflecting on what happened and trying to see it from a new perspective, from the lens of all the things that I've learned currently, like how I am now. So I'm kind of looking at it from a different angle. I also believe I read somewhere that like within astrology, I don't know if it was last season or this season, something to do with the mother architect and the mother wound. And I believe the way I heard it was that all of us have a mother wound if we had a mother or mother figure or mother like guardian in our lives when we were children, and how that affects us, whether the parent was very neglectful and not there, maybe like physically or emotionally, or if they were there and they were loving, but there's still some things that we need to heal from, forgive them for. I mean, because no parent is perfect, but it's up to us to make the choice to be conscious of it and really do some like shadow work, inner work, and diving into that and kind of really unpacking all of that and really sift through them. So that is what I've been doing as of late. Okay, so to start off, I want to just share some examples of neglect and abandonment that I've had in my life within the issues I've had with my mother. So I am an only child. I do have some half brothers, I believe, on my father's side, but I don't personally know them. I've only kind of talked to them on the phone and online a little bit. I have also never met my father. I've also talked to him online and over the phone, but never met him in person. I've also never met any other members of my family. No aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, nothing like that. And I believe a big part of that is I don't know a lot about my mom's history, like hardly anything. She's told me bits and pieces over the years, but from what I understand, she was in foster care from a pretty young age, maybe as a early teenager, and she bounced around from home to home. So I'm not sure what kind of relationship she had with her actual biological family. She just wasn't close to any of them at all, and she didn't want me to be around them, including my father. He apparently was not a very nice guy, to say the least, so she actually did everything in her power to physically keep me away from him. Like, she would move to different states, and she would just do a lot of things to try to make sure he couldn't find us. Like, she didn't want me to have any social media or anything like that for a long time, for example. So, my mom was all I had for for biological family my entire life. And as a child, I always had this fear that she was going to abandon me. I don't know if that's intuition, uh, knowing that that was a lesson I had to learn in this lifetime. And so I kind of knew it was coming. And I don't know if something happened earlier on in life that I can't remember right now consciously that sealed that belief subconsciously that she would abandon me one day. All right, so now on to the examples of how I felt neglected and abandoned as a child. The first one is, I think around the age 13, I want to say, my mom basically checked out mentally and emotionally. Before the age of 13, I remember my mom putting me first before herself. Like if we didn't have enough food, she would give me food and she would eat less or go without. She was very protective of me, not overly protective, but enough that I felt safe. She would spend a lot of time with me. Like we would do everything together. We loved to watch movies together. We loved listening to the same music. Like she would get into my little kid kind of music with me. We would go to the beach together. Even though she didn't swim, she would take me. We would just hang out and laugh, have a good time. Just went to a concert together. I remember she took me to my first concert, and she was my best friend. Like, I just absolutely love my mom. Like, I can't tell you, I wanted to be around her all the time. It wasn't like, I mean, I had other friends. I actually had a good group of friends throughout my childhood. But when they weren't around or I wasn't hanging with them, I just loved hanging out with my mom. I didn't even mind her hanging out with me and my friends. I thought she was cool. So around the age of 13, the biggest shift that I noticed was that she had stopped taking medication. She used to have this long pill case that said like Sunday through Saturday on it with a ton of different pills in them. And I to this day don't know what they were for. I don't know what she was diagnosed with. I don't think it was something physical. I believe it was more of something mental. Because as far as I know, I don't recall her having any physical ailments where she had to go to the doctor or get checkups or anything like that. And as I was reflecting back on it, a lot of other things that happened, I believe what ended up actually happening was that my mom had a spiritual awakening, just like I have, but hers turned into a psychosis. And that can happen. Like, I don't want to put fear into anybody about having an awakening, but it can happen, I've heard, and it does happen sometimes with people who wake up too fast and they go into a state of psychosis and they have to be hospitalized and medicated and things like that. That actually did happen to my mom twice, although they didn't tell me exactly what happened to her. They didn't understand. And we were really deep into religion. We were actually Jehovah's Witnesses at the time, so that was just confusing for our congregation, and also I don't think the doctors really explained anything to me as well. So after this happened, not like right after, but maybe like a year or so later, my mom would do this thing where she would lock herself in her bedroom for days at a time. And this is something that's always been kind of weird for me to talk about because no one else that I know of has ever had anything like this with their parents. And so it's very strange, I know, but this is what happened. She would lock herself in a room for days. She would not eat. I don't know. I'm guessing she had some water. I don't really recall the details in that. And she wouldn't come out and talk to me. She wouldn't interact with me. And it was very difficult and painful for me because it feels like I had just lost my best friend. We had moved to a new city in Florida, so I didn't know anyone yet. I didn't have any friends. So I felt especially alone and isolated. I remember cooking food for her and leaving it by the door and telling her it was there. And I think most of the time, I can't remember, maybe sometimes she ate it, maybe sometimes she didn't. And so not only was I trying to take care of her from a distance behind a door with making sure she was getting food and water and stuff like that, I also was taking complete care of myself. Like, I'm telling you, like, literally, I would not see my mom for days. So I would be responsible for my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was responsible for getting myself on the school bus and getting myself to school, coming home from school, and pretty much everything else I needed, I had to take care of my own needs. I remember even once or maybe a couple of times there was a school trip that I wanted to go on, and we had these permission slips we had to bring to our parents to get signed. I told my mom about it from the other side of the door. I slipped it under the door, and she wouldn't sign it. She refused to sign it, said she couldn't deal with it right then. Like, she just mentally couldn't do it. So she slid it back under me, or she slid it back under the door to me, blank. And this was around the time that I started to grow up quick. I grew up so fast because I basically was an adult in a way. I was acting like an adult because I was taking care of myself and trying to take care of someone else. So another example of how I felt neglected and abandoned was when my mom would leave for hours, sometimes the entire day. Usually I think it would be on a weekend or maybe after school. I wouldn't see her for hours, but I remember I think a lot on the weekends. She would go somewhere, I think out of town, do something, was very vague about it, wouldn't really tell me where she was going or what she was doing, and I would just kind of sit home all day by myself. This was actually before the age of 13 when this started happening, maybe around the time I was like 8, 9. And so I would be scared. I would be scared to be home by myself all day at like 8 years old. I didn't have a babysitter. I didn't have any other family members to contact. Like, I was just alone. And it was lonely and it was scary. And after a few hours, and I don't know if you remember as a child, it seemed like, at least for me, time went by so slow. Like, an hour would feel like a year. And so after being home for like 8, 9, 10 hours by myself, I would start to like overthink and be like, oh my gosh, like, is my mom okay? What's happening? Is she coming back? Because at that point too, we didn't have cell phones, and she never called, I don't think. Yeah, she wouldn't call to let me know what was up, if she was coming back soon or anything. And I would a lot of times cry. I would just be freaking out all alone. And by the time she got back, I would be pissed at her because I felt abandoned. And technically I was physically abandoned. So now fast forward a few years, around the age of 16, I had gotten a job with a plumber, and I was his apprentice. That's what I was known as, a plumber's apprentice. And it was just him and it was me. And we would drive around to different houses and fix whatever their plumbing or AC or heating or whatever needed to be fixed. And eventually, after a while, my boss and my mom started dating. And this was the first time literally in my entire life that my mom had actually like dated. And I was 16 at this point. So this was already strange enough for me. And I didn't mind. I thought he was a good guy. I had spent hours upon hours with him every day working. Also, like I said, a lot of times driving around the car. So I got to know him, and I thought he was a pretty, decent guy. And so one night my mom decided to go out with him, or actually stay in. She went to his house. And I think this was like on the weekend, maybe like, actually I don't know what day it was, it doesn't matter. So she decided to go to his house, and they were going to have date night there, like he was going to cook or whatever, and I was okay with that. But then after a few hours, I think maybe when it started to become like 10, 11, 12, because my mom probably left at like 5, I started thinking, like, is she coming back soon? Is she okay? I started to worry. And she hadn't communicated with me at all. And right before this point, I had saved up a bunch of money to buy us both cell phones and cell phone plans so that we could stay in touch. That's what I used my money from my job as a plumber apprentice. So I kept calling and I kept texting and leaving voicemails. I even called and left voicemails and texts with her boyfriend and also my boss. And neither of them would get back to me. And I was starting to get livid over a period of time because I'm just sitting at home alone. I don't have a car. I can't really go. We lived in the middle of nowhere. We were like way far from town. I didn't know anybody there, and I was starting to panic. And it just made me even more mad knowing that I had personally worked as a teenager to pay for phones for both me and my mom, and she didn't even have the courtesy of at least calling me back and letting me know what was going on. Because she ended up spending the night with him, which I guess I would have been okay with, at least if I had known. And so I had left a lot of threatening voicemails for my boss and her boyfriend because I was really upset. I was really hurt. Come to find out, he had a couple of kids from a previous relationship, and the daughter was the exact same age as me. We went to the same school and everything. We were in high school together. And one day I saw her in the bathroom at school, and she told me that she heard the voicemails, the threatening ones I left for her dad, and they thought it was funny, and they all laughed. So like him, my mom, maybe, and her brother, I think she had a brother, were all just laughing at my pain and suffering. And that just put the final nail in for me, the coffin. That just really put me over the edge. But the very next day, before my mom got home, after being out all night, I had called CYFD. I had waited until they opened, and then I had called CYFD first thing that morning, and I filed a report of neglect and abandonment, which opened a case for me in the system. And they take these things very seriously, these phone calls, which I knew, and I thought about it, of course, before I did it. And if this was the only incident that was like neglectful with my mom, I may not have called them, but it had already been building up over the years since I was 8 and I was now 16, and this was just like the final straw for me. And I was like, I don't feel like I can be here anymore. I don't feel like I'm getting my needs met, and I'm really exhausted of trying to just take care of myself all the time and take care of my mom and feeling abandoned. So a social worker stopped by that same day. I think they told me to let them know when my mom got home, and then they set up a time to come over, and they sat with my mom for like an hour or two, talking to her, getting all the information. And they didn't do anything that day because they felt like it wasn't needed. And their whole philosophy is like trying to keep the parent with the child, if possible. So working with that instead of placing them into another home or something like that, which I understand. But from that moment on, our relationship between my mom and I was very strained. She was very upset with me, even canceled my 16th birthday. Not that I think I even had like a party or anything because I didn't know anybody, but it was just a very tough time after that. We really weren't getting along, and at that point, a little bit later, I had made some really close friends, and I was spending most of my time with them. And at one of their houses, I spent a lot of nights there in a row, and her family ended up being like my family. Her mom was like my mom, so I felt really comfortable being there. A few months later, while I was still 16 years old, I made the decision to leave my mom for good. And the reason was because one day I came home, and at this time we were renting a room out of a big house with other people who were renting rooms from a landlord. So we just had a room with 2 beds on the floor, a TV and clothes and stuff, a closet, a bathroom. This is at a point where we were homeless for a while, and off and on for like a couple years, and this was the first stable place we had in a while. And one day I get home after spending the night with my friend that I hung out with a lot, and when I came home, our TV was gone, all of our movies, our DVDs, DVD player, everything was gone. And I was really upset because, one, I like watching movies. It's one of my favorite things to do. And also because I had saved up personally from working to buy like 50 DVDs, I think we had at that point. And I think even my CDs and everything, my mom just threw them away. And I confront her. I'm basically like, what the hell? And she just tells me nonchalantly that she's decided that we're just going to go back to being homeless. And we're getting rid of everything again. And I was like, no, I am not doing that again. That was some hard shit to go through. I've decided I'm not doing it. I don't know why anybody would really just choose to do it if they don't have to. We were still getting child support, I think, from my dad. So we had the money to pay for the room, but she just decided we weren't going to and didn't explain further than that, which I didn't accept. So I had called a place that was like a youth shelter that was in town, and I called the police to come pick me up and take me to the shelter. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was going to try, I think, to get emancipated, because that's the only thing I thought of at the time that I thought I could do, because I was 16 and I was already working for a couple years now. But while I was in there, I decided not to do that. I ended up becoming what's called a ward of the state, where the state was like my guardian, I guess, and I had a social worker who would check in with me. From there, I lived so after the youth shelter and I became a ward of the state and I had a social worker with CYFD, I was moved into something that was like called a youth transitional living facility, where I stayed until I was 18, and by the time I was 18, they helped me save enough money to get my own apartment. At this point, I did not see my mom very often, except for when she came to drop off school books for me when I had first left home, and I didn't really see her at all after that. One of the last times I saw her was she was walking on the side of the road near the apartment I was staying at, and so a lot of time had passed and I'd already pretty much forgiven her, and I ran after her to talk to her, and she agreed to come stay with me in my apartment for a while because she was still homeless at that point. And things were okay. She mostly locked herself in my room and didn't really come out. I had friends over. I had a boyfriend at the time that I was hanging out with at my house, at my apartment, and she would just isolate herself in my room and come out to like get food and go to the bathroom and that sort of thing. Within a few weeks, I was already planning to move to a bigger city that was an hour away from where we were there, and I had let my mom know this, but I was like, you can stay with me until then. And we had kind of gotten into a disagreement. Sorry, I'm like sweating so much. Pardon my sweating. Anyways, what was I saying? So I agreed that she could stay with me until I moved. And then we had gotten into a disagreement about, I don't know, food and stuff. I was getting irritated because I was working and I was getting a check from the state, I think up until I was 21 or something, to help pay for what I used to help pay for rent. And my mom wasn't contributing anything. Like, she wasn't looking for a job or finding any way to make money or helping pay for food or gas or just anything. So like, I was once again fully supporting her, and I just got to this point, like, I love my mom so much, but I had already taken care of her for most of my life. I was barely able to take care of myself, as well. I had to fully support myself and be responsible for myself, and I just didn't want to be responsible for her again. And not just her, but like anyone at that point. I really just needed me at that time. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons I decided I don't want kids, is because I never really got to be a kid, and I have a lot of issues to work through. I know everybody does, but I have chosen to work on myself and not have kids, and I don't want them to go through anything similar to what I went through as a kid. But that's beside the point. So anyways, we got into this disagreement, and so I think that night I spent the night in my room because I didn't have friends or my boyfriend there, and she slept in the living room. And when I woke up in the morning, she was gone. Like, no note, didn't leave the key, didn't mention anything to me that she was going to be gone, and she never came back. So once again, I felt abandoned. So those are all of the things I can think of right now that I've been reflecting on that are really big examples of how I felt neglected and abandoned in my childhood and the wounds I'm trying to heal through my relationship with my mom. I know that was pretty long, and I get very detailed, but again, I do feel like it was important. So if you still are with me to this point of the video, thank you for hanging on. We will get to the point of what we can do about this and how we can stop abandoning and neglecting ourselves. So I would say the main way that I've been abandoning, neglecting myself is I put everyone else ahead of me. Not just everyone, but everything. Like if my dogs need something, I will neglect myself in order to do whatever it is I need to do for them. Like it may not even be something that's like time sensitive or super critical, but it's like, oh, well, if they need a bath today, I'll give them a bath, versus like if I need something that day, I could hold off on their bath till like even a few hours later, an hour later, the next day. It's not something that's like super, super important that needs to be done right then. I'll do the same for my husband. Like I'll drop everything and try to help him as much as I can. I'll drop everything with my friends and try to help them. I will also neglect myself if things like need to be cleaned, if my home needs to be cleaned, if dishes need to be done. So I always had this thing of a to-do list and usually like some kind of a self-care routine list, but I would prioritize the self-care last for myself, and I would never get to it because something always came up, or things, I couldn't get everything done on my to-do list. That's just not how life works most of the time. This has put a huge strain on my, I think, mental health and just overall wellness, emotional health as well. And what I recently discovered was the reason I was doing all of this, not just because I was used to doing it as a child, trying to do everything for my mom and friends and other people and neglecting myself. It was because I had continued that trend of feeling neglected and abandoned as a child. So now as an adult, I am carrying on that trend. I didn't even realize it. I thought I was doing it just because I wanted to help, which I do love to help. But I basically was being a martyr. I was self-sacrificing my needs and so therefore part of my happiness. But it took me this long, I'm 30 now, to realize that's what I was doing. Because the way that our parents raise us is a lot of times the same way that we continue to raise ourselves. Meaning we carry on the same thought patterns that we had when we were a kid. We carry on the same beliefs. We hear the same things that our parents told us in our childhood. We do the same things. We eat the same things that our parents made for us. And we do this subconsciously, without even thinking, because we've just done it for so long. And I think the problem that happens with a lot of people is they will blame their parents or their mom or their dad specifically as being the reason for why they are the way they are and making it their fault. So that person feels like they can't do anything about how they are and what they do because of how they were raised. So yes, our parents, our family, our childhood definitely affects like every area of our life, even later on as adults. But it is still up to each and every one of us to make the choice to become aware of it, be more conscious of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and to heal from it. That is not up to our parents. Our parents cannot fix those mistakes. They can apologize, which is nice, but that doesn't always happen. But if we keep placing the blame on someone else outside of ourselves, and we don't take any kind of responsibility for our life, then we can't change it because we feel like we don't have the power, because we've given the power to outside people and circumstances. That being said, I do not blame my mom. I do not hate my mom. I do not resent or regret my mom or anything that she's done. I forgive her. I forgive her for everything. This is a process that's taken me a while too. And I know I said before I will make a video on forgiveness. I promise, it's in the queue. I will get to it. But yeah, forgiveness is very important. I know my mom was just doing the best she could at the time. But even so, when I was thinking about all of this yesterday, I asked myself, and I guess I asked the universe, I was like, okay, I think I understand a lot of what my mom was going through. I understand kind of maybe how she was thinking and how she had a rough childhood, and that she's probably having a spiritual awakening along with psychosis. But why did she abandon me? I didn't understand. I was just thinking, like, I did the very best I could as a child. I busted my ass with school to get good grades, to make her proud. I worked any kind of job I could to make money, to give her money, to help provide money for rent or for hotel rooms when we were homeless. I took care of myself. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be I felt like a burden. So I was like, well, I'll take care of myself. You know, I cooked for myself. I cleaned for myself. I did a lot. Like I said, I was very responsible for myself. And then not only that, I was also trying to take care of my mom at the same time, because she couldn't take care of herself, or me, you know, let alone me. So with all of that, I was like, I just did and did and did, but it apparently wasn't enough. So I always had this kind of subconscious belief that I'm not good enough to love. Because if I had done all that for my mom, and she's my mom, and she still abandoned me, then I'm not worthy of love. And of course, this meant that I had a lack mentality when it comes to feeling worthy of what I want, of feeling loved by others. Because even though I'm not in that situation anymore, and I'm in a wonderful, healthy, functional, loving relationship with my husband, who I am so grateful, who loves me through all of these issues that he knows about, and he's very patient and understanding, I was still recreating the same patterns. I kept neglecting myself. I kept abandoning myself. And I had to come to terms with that. So after I had asked this question out loud, why did my mom abandon me? Because it's still, that part still hurts. That part I'm still healing from, because I didn't know why. And then, like they say, if you ask, you shall receive. My beautiful friend Riss from All My Ancestors, who I did a video with, I think a year ago or so, I will post it up above. She is now a professional astrologer. She does a lot of shadow work through astrology. So I also do shadow work as well as a light worker. This is how I come up with all of these epiphanies and realizations I have that I share here on the channel. I don't do it through the scope of astrology because I don't really understand astrology. I don't know a lot about it. And when I do try to learn, it's kind of confusing. So I really appreciate others who understand it for sharing their knowledge and wisdom about it. I saw this story that she had posted on Instagram, because I follow her over there and I see all of her content that she posts. And if you want to get in contact with her or have an astrology reading or anything like that, I'll leave her Instagram below so you can go check out her page. That's where she posts a lot of her wisdom about astrology and things that she's learning. It's been very beneficial for me. So I will read you what the post said. I had to take a screenshot. Whenever we sabotage a relationship, distract ourselves with unhealthy food, and choose into toxicity, we abandon ourselves. This is a very subconscious process people fall into, and they don't do these things with the intention of abandoning themselves. It just happens in the process because in the moment they give more power to the thing they choose over themselves for reasons beyond conscious thought. If the mother archetype abandoned you, it wasn't your fault, and it wasn't personal. It's because the mother wasn't able to meet their own needs. I'm telling you guys, when I read what she wrote, it hit down hard. It resonated so fully. And when I say resonate, I mean it's not something that I think to be true or I believe to be true even. It's I know to be true. My intuition and my heart and soul is saying this message is for you. So I almost cried. I was like, thank you to Riss and to the universe, my higher self, for bringing me the answer that I needed. Because a part of me always did feel like it was personal. And it was my fault that my mom wasn't there for me, physically, mentally, emotionally. And that's something I developed as a child that carried on with me into adulthood. And it has affected so many areas of my life. But after I read this and I got the answer I needed for so long, because I don't think I actually ever asked the question of why she abandoned me. So I never got an answer. It was like such a relief. I instantly felt so much healing after reading that message. And now it all makes so much sense. Why I am the way I am, why I act the way I act and do the things that I do. Because my subconscious intention of putting everyone else before myself and doing everything for others all the time pretty much and neglecting myself was because I was looking for love. I was scared that people were going to abandon me if I didn't always do everything for them. And there's some points in my life where I got so tired of doing that, I think without realizing it, that I just sort of started resenting people and pushed them away or just, stopped talking to them altogether and just isolated myself away from the world. And that wasn't healthy either. So that brings us now to a few steps I want to go over that may help you to stop neglecting and abandoning yourself and how to reparent yourself. So reparent, real quick, I just want to discuss. I had heard this term a few days ago from a friend when we were talking on the phone because I was telling her about these steps I've been doing. And she talked about how she read a book or something that was about how to reparent your child or how to reparent yourself as an adult. And I'd never heard that term, and it just seems so fitting because it's like our inner child never goes away. They're always there. They're always asking for something, needing something, or trying to tell us something, or they act out in certain ways, and we'll react to things that trigger us, and we don't know what it is or why we're doing that. And that's where the inner work really comes in. So basically, it's like you never really stop parenting yourself, even as an adult. Like you may still be in touch with or close to your own parents, and they will give you guidance or advice. But for the most part, once you turn 18, you are considered a legal adult, and you will make pretty much all the decisions for yourself, like what you eat, when you eat, and what job you want to work at, or what college you want to go to, or what car you're going to drive, if you're going to adopt pets, if you're going to decide to have kids. Like all of these decisions are now your own. And every decision you make as an adult still affects our inner child, even if we're not aware of it. So just because we're physically more mature and grown up, taller and everything, doesn't mean that we don't still have those inner child aspects from when we were growing up that still affect us pretty much on the daily. So the first step that I've been doing that has helped me a lot is, first of all, acknowledging and validating my own feelings. I realized this a little while back when my husband and I had a disagreement about something. It was something small, but I was still pretty upset. And he was in the RV doing something, and we were about to leave to take the dogs for a walk at a park or something. And I was feeling so frustrated inside, so stressed and just, upset. And I kept pushing my feelings away and going, I can't deal with this right now. I've got to get ready to go. I have to pack this stuff and I have to do this and that before we go. And I was neglecting and abandoning myself. And I finally realized this, but I was like, I can take 5 minutes to just acknowledge how I'm feeling. And I thought about it in the terms of like my inner child, or if I had a child of my own, if they were like, Mommy, I'm really upset. I don't know why. And if I were, let's just say this is a child that of mine, and if I responded with, Mommy doesn't have time to deal with your feelings right now. We gotta pack up and go walk the dogs at the park. Maybe later we'll get to you. That child is not going to understand, and they're going to feel the way they feel, and they're not going to be able to process it possibly on their own without being able to talk to somebody and at least have their feelings acknowledged and validated. Because at this point they may not know how to do this on their own. It's usually up to the parents to support them and help them through these things as best they can. So I was thinking, if I had a child, I would not do that to them. So why would I do that to myself? Why would I do that to my own inner child? So I took a few minutes, came out to the truck, sat by myself, and just was breathing, and then kind of just let everything out. I was thinking, how am I feeling? And then I would think how I was feeling. Well, I'm feeling upset. Well, why am I feeling upset? Well, this, and this happened. And I don't remember exactly what all I came up with that day, but I literally just sat down for a few minutes and acknowledged how I was feeling. You can even acknowledge where you're feeling it. So like, for instance, if you say you feel anxious, well, where in your body do you feel anxiety? Maybe it's in the pit of your stomach, you have really nervous butterflies, or maybe it's in your heart is rapidly racing. And then you can start to ask questions to yourself like, okay, well, what am I thinking about? How am I feeling? That sort of thing. But if you just give yourself at least 5 minutes, even if you're at work and you're busy, go to the bathroom or step outside, or go somewhere where you can be alone and just sit and breathe and just be with yourself for a few minutes to acknowledge how you're feeling, whatever it is. Even if it's something that a feeling that you don't want to feel and it's uncomfortable, just make sure to sit with it and acknowledge it. The second tip I have for you that I've been doing that's been helping is to ask myself what I need in that moment. So, for example, again, guys, I'm so sorry, I'm so sweaty. Just bear with me, I'm almost done. And what I mean by that is like, I've been working more on listening to my intuition about my own body and my needs. So, for instance, one day I'll be like, check in with myself, just randomly. I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling some kind of way. I don't know how I'm feeling. So I'll ask myself, how am I feeling? And then maybe the response I'll feel is, I feel tired. I was like, okay, well, my body needs rest. If I don't have something that's super, super, super important, like some appointment that I can't get back or something at that time, or something I have to do, otherwise it's like really time sensitive, I will go and take a nap. Or even if I can't sleep, I will just lay down and read or something. Or other times I'll ask myself, how am I feeling? And I'm like, man, my throat's dry, I feel thirsty. And I'm like, oh, I need water. Something that seems like so simple. Well, duh, you just drink water all day long. I get so busy or so caught up in doing things, again, usually for everyone else, that I forget the most basic needs for myself. I don't acknowledge the fact that I'm thirsty because I'm just used to being thirsty and I don't do anything about it. So definitely check in with yourself throughout the day, especially if you're feeling just something that you're not quite sure what it is or why you're feeling that way. And the very last thing, the third tip, is put yourself first. I know this is said so many times. It's easier said than done. You're probably tired of hearing that. You're like, I know that I'm supposed to do that, but how do I actually do that? The most important thing I would say is making time for yourself. Most people will say give yourself at least an hour of alone time to do whatever it is that you want to do. Like if you want to take a bath, or you want to paint, or you want to go outside for a walk by yourself, or whatever it is that you enjoy, take 1 hour to do something by yourself. I know a lot of people have bigger families where they do actually have kids and they have all these responsibilities and they've got a full-time job or maybe a second job. So maybe an hour may not be as realistic, but I would say at least half an hour if you can. A minimum at least 15 minutes a day, even if you spread it out in 5-minute increments. For me, what I've been doing is literally putting myself first in the sense of waking up an hour before my husband does for work, even though I'm not a morning person and I prefer to sleep in. This has allowed me to make sure I have time to do what I want, which is typically I will meditate first thing in the morning. Then I will do some journaling. I'll usually write about my dreams that I had. I'll write what I'm grateful for and synchronicities that I've been experiencing. So that's a way to like kind of check in with myself. I might go for a run, like a 30-minute run, and then I might do yoga afterwards, like for 20 minutes to stretch. And just whatever it is I feel like I want to do. Sometimes I'll read during that time because I don't exactly know how the day is going to go, and things come up. Like I said, things take longer than you expect sometimes. People need things at the moment. You know, it is okay, I think, to put to help out other people if they really need you, but you definitely have to have yourself taken care of first, because you will not have enough energy to help other people. You're going to be completely drained and exhausted most of the time, and you're not going to know why. And that's why it's so crucial to put yourself first. And for me, it's first thing in the morning. Maybe for parents, maybe it's at night after your kids go to sleep. Maybe it's on your lunch break at work. Wherever, whenever you can fit in that time, as long as you make it a priority. I highly recommend first thing in the morning, even if you have to wake up early and you're not a morning person, because it assures you literally put yourself first and you don't have to worry about getting to yourself later. You've already done it. You're set for the day. You're going to feel better and more energized, and I think happier overall. And finally, I just want to say that in order for all of those steps I just said, those 3 steps, to work, I think the most efficiently is to make sure to do shadow work, to do inner work. This basically means still taking time to yourself and really getting to know yourself, getting to understand yourself, getting to acknowledge how you feel, why you feel in this way, and ask questions that you want to know. Like for me, I asked, why did my mom abandon me and neglect me so much? I got the answer in the form of a story on Instagram. The universe is always speaking to us. If you want to know something, if you're asking a question about yourself, your life, someone else, make sure to pay attention to the signs, because the universe will give you answers in all different forms. It could be in the form of song lyrics, like a random song you hear on the radio, and it speaks to you, it resonates with you. It's talking about what you're feeling and going through right now. It sometimes will come to the form of other people, maybe people on YouTube that you're watching, or even sometimes a movie or a TV show. Maybe it's friends or family. Maybe it's a stranger who stops you and starts talking about something that may seem random at first. It can come through the form of books or any kind of literature. It's just everywhere. So yeah, definitely take some time to really get to know yourself and to be with yourself. Have that quality alone time with yourself. And once you start to discover, like I did, what I went through, why I went through it, and when I finally realized it wasn't my fault and that it wasn't personal and there's nothing else I could have physically done. And now I finally realize that I am enough. I am good enough. I am worthy of love. And I don't have to do everything or be everything for everyone else in order to be loved. The people who truly love me for who I am, not what I do.